I am a man, 51 years old. 13 years ago, professional obligations forced me to leave my hometown, leaving my 48-year-old wife, Mona, and our 2 kids behind in Texas. The kids are now 21 and 23 years old, respectively, and have gone to Houston to live independently. When the housing bubble caused the U.S. to enter a Great Recession 13 to 14 years ago, our company was among thousands that abruptly failed. At the time, I was managing my dad's construction company after his death. Everything was thrown away. My wife, my mother, and our 2 school-aged children were all under my care. I simply couldn't handle it in such an uncertain economic climate. Upon exhausting all my cash and resources, I was forced to make the difficult choice to move out. I eventually succeeded in establishing my firm in Dubai after attempting to make my fortune in a number of Asian nations. It was a challenging time, but my desire to give my family a nice life kept me going despite all the challenges. I was gone from home for about a year after moving out of Texas before I could start my new endeavor. I used to go home every 5 to 6 months or so after that. My desire to move my family here was tempered by Mona and the kids' insistence on continuing their education as usual. My youngest daughter graduated from college last year and got a job at her sister's business. I scheduled my vacation home so I could spend time with her before she left. I begged Mona to move in with me during that visit because both of the kids had moved out, but she refused, claiming that my mom would be left alone. I offered for Mom to come along as well, but neither of them was excited about leaving their hometown. They had no desire to relocate to a foreign nation with such a disparate culture. They were correct in their own way. The cultures of the Middle East and the West are very dissimilar. I gave up on pressing the matter. I informed Mona during my most recent visit home that I intended to conclude everything in Dubai and return to Texas. It wasn't the exciting news I had assumed it would be for her. She was not pleased with her response to this. I inquired as to whether she objected to us sharing a home. She replied, "No, I'm happy. It's just that I worked so hard to get established there. Why do you want to give up and go back?" She was correct in that it wasn't easy to shut off things that required so much sacrifice and that it might not have been the best course of action. The problem is that after 13 years away, I felt the need to return to my hometown and comfort zone, my children's education, now that my primary duty had been fulfilled. I told her that I would handle our money the same manner as I have been. I had intended to establish something in Texas now that the economy of the state has recovered. She remained unconvinced. Although that was a red light for me, I chose to overlook it. My mother unexpectedly paid me a visit the following morning. She told me that I shouldn't be moving back so quickly. Mona would have been the one to inform her about my plan, as I hadn't disclosed it to her or anybody else. I was taken aback. I felt that Mona's resistance to this would be cause for concern, but when my mother voiced a similar worry, I started to doubt myself. I gave up on that concept because I felt like I might be making the incorrect choice. The fact that my wife didn't want to live with me, though, bothered me. I was devastated by Mona's emotional detachment from me, even though the cause might make sense. I reduced the number of calls and texts I had with her after getting back from home, since I couldn't shake this feeling. I assumed she would see it and inquire about it, but she showed little interest in finding out how things were doing. There were days when neither she nor I spoke with each other. Weeks turned into days, and at this point she just communicates in transactional terms. These all pointed to the same conclusion. She was done requiring my help. I thus approached her last month. I asked her if she was no longer in love with me. She dismissed it, saying I was just being too analytical. She said that she is simply too busy tending to the house and my mother, who is getting older and more frail. I was at a loss for words. It's not every day that you discover your wife caring for her mother-in-law and developing such a strong bond with her. I was appreciative of Mona's kindness for my mother. My sense of unease is developing every day. Why my wife would not want to be with me is a conundrum I can't quite solve. We already own our own home, we've taken care of our major obligations, and I swear that our way of life won't change. It defies logic, then, why she doesn't want me to return home. Yes, just as you're all thinking, I had the same thought. Had she found someone better? The issue is, though, how do I discover the reality? So far, she hasn't displayed any other warning signs. She had raised the kids so courageously without my help. She had been a wonderful mother. It's not simple. She has played every part with such grace. It's not always easy to distrust someone. But you know how long-distance relationships operate. Any suggestions on how to research this? It's like trying to figure out why people are still using fax machines in your circumstance. It's complex, antiquated, and nobody really understands what's going on. 13 years away from home is a long time, after all. It seems that she has truly acclimated to living without you. It is now her new normal. Furthermore, it wouldn't be unusual for someone whose spouse spends less than half of their time away from home to look for intimacy elsewhere. That's all to say, even if she was cheating, your absence would not provide her with a valid reason to continue her adultery. First update. I appreciate all of your advice. It was a pleasure to get in touch with those of you who shared your experiences with betrayal. There is a lot to learn. My mother knew that Mona had been unfaithful to me for some time, but she kept it a secret from me. I'm not sure what I did wrong to merit this outcome. After sharing my experience on this platform and interacting with all of you, I realized I could not ignore this. I had a surprise visit home planned. Not even my mother knew about it, that's for sure. I was afraid I would run across Mona and her companion in the affair as I was getting into my house. It's kind of weird, but this is the first instance of a cheating wife of a deployed husband that I could think of after reading so many stories. Thankfully, nothing of the such occurred. I used the extra key to get inside the house and found Mona in the kitchen. Sure, her eyes widened at my sight. As a surprise, I covered it up by bringing a bouquet with me. She was definitely taken aback by my abrupt presence, but she was also wary. She asked me a ton of questions about my appearance. I told her that I had chosen to return home because I had little work that month. She faked a smile, trying to look joyful, but it was obviously forced. Over the next 3 weeks, I worked to uncover the truth. I took all the actions that someone in my shoes would have taken. I'm not too proud of some of it, but it was obviously my only option. I put a GPS on her car, surreptitiously accessed her. Her phone, listened in on her conversations, and trailed her about the town. All of this provided me with a comprehensive picture of what was going on back home while I was away. She had been seeing someone for the previous 8 years, it was revealed. She was really protective of her phone the day I got home. She used to clear up every piece of evidence before I got there. She was not given the chance this time. On the first day, I attempted to pry into her phone but was unable. And when I did manage to get access to it, I discovered nothing. Maybe the first time she had the chance, she cleaned things up. I discovered her cheating when I followed her around in her car using a GPS gadget. When I first saw her leaving a hardware store, I had no suspicions. However, I noticed that the owner had closed his store and turned down the shutter as I was waiting outside for her to come back. It made me feel really lightheaded. A few hours later, I caught her leaving the store, and when her car pulled out of the driveway, the proprietor opened the shutter. I considered going inside the business to visit the affair partner, but I restrained myself, fearing that she may find me and wreck my plans. In order to capture them in the act, I waited for her to pay me another visit. She would usually go outside in the afternoon. She would occasionally come see my mom, sometimes with her parents or friends. I blindly followed her about, watching for the moment when she would meet her lover. She finally went to see my mom yesterday. It usually took me a long time to catch up with her since on those days I would retreat and not pursue her further. However, I remained there yesterday and discovered them leaving the house together. It didn't seem strange to me at all. I had assumed they were going shopping or somewhere else. Even if I didn't want to, something made me follow them. My heart fell when they pulled over at the hardware store. The partner in the affair emerged and greeted them both. Mona and I both stepped out of the automobile. Mona was kissed by the partner in the affair in front of my mother. After a few minutes of conversation, the woman having the affair hugged her mother and got into the car before driving off. Mona entered his shop with her affair companion, and he lowered the shutters. My eyes were so unbelievable to me. It was one thing to have your wife betray you, but to have your own mother do the same is unimaginable. I was so overcome by the truth that I had to take a few minutes to walk down the pathway in order to clear my head. I eventually went to the store and knocked. It received no response. I banged on the door until my affair partner answered. He froze when I asked him where Mona was. Before he could respond, I shoved him aside and stormed into the store. There was a weak voice coming from the storeroom, and the lights were off. When I hurried inside, my wife was lying on her back, caressing herself and wailing for her lover. The affair partner grabbed hold of me and pulled me out of the storeroom as Mona let out a loud cry, but it was just for a split second. It took me a while to process what was going on because everything was moving so quickly. I broke free by giving my affair partner a punch. Mona had already covered herself as she emerged from the storeroom. I asked her how long as I grasped her neck. Mona stopped the affair partner from trying to save her. She broke down in tears and begged that we talk about this at home. I backed down, went outside, and drove away. When I realized I would get into problems for this altercation. My mom didn't seem astonished by my actions, so I hurried to her house and threw myself inside while yelling, "You knew it! You knew it! You also betrayed me!" Mona had already phoned. She just sobbed and grasped my hand while pleading with me to stop. I lost it. By then, Mona had also come. My rage increased upon seeing her face. I asked them to be honest with me. Mona finally responded, "It was very lonely when you left, after much prodding. Living by yourself for 13 years is not easy. You scarcely had any time for me because you were so preoccupied with your career. For a few minutes, your calls were restricted and primarily concerned with checking in on Mom and the kids. How about me?" I questioned her about the duration of this. "Maybe 7-8 years, she suggested. Holy cow, I was such a fool, working so hard for so long in a foreign land, just so my family could have a comfortable life. And that's exactly what they were doing." I questioned her. "If there was such a big gulf between us, why didn't you get a divorce?" Wow, I looked at Mom and asked her how I had wronged her to deserve this betrayal from her. She broke down again and said, "I love you. I never wanted to separate from you. Spending time with the affair partner was only to distress myself and kill my loneliness and nothing else. He doesn't mean anything in my life, really. After fooling around with him, he doesn't mean anything to her." I had to stick by her in spite of her betrayal of me as she sobbed and said, "I know you hate me, but think of my perspective. You left me alone here. Mona was taking care of me. She also has needs as a woman. I understand that." After I had all the answers, I stood up to go. I told them not to, but they both attempted to stop me and followed me outside. I want to spend some time by myself, so I instructed Mona not to come home. I pouted as I drove home. I have an upset stomach. I'm not sure how to respond to this. I mean, was it really my fault that I was traveling in a strange nation to support my family? This is really heartbreaking. Not only has your wife replaced you and misled you, but your own mother has also abandoned you while you've been away practically attempting to support your family. There had to have been discussions where living arrangements were reviewed and sentiments expressed if Mona was truly feeling so alone. It's not only cheating to be together for 7-8 years, she's really started a new life with this guy. It's not your fault, but marriage requires two people, for sure. You believed that you were striving to provide for your family and that you were acting morally. Regarding your mother, she ought to have encouraged you. It was incorrect of her to ever have backed Mona. The moment she realized Mona wasn't doing well without you back home, she ought to have been in touch with you to update you on her situation. Second update. Thank you very much for your support. Regards. What followed was that I stayed depressed for the following few days. After that, I took a car to Houston to see my girls. They were adults. They had a right to know what their mother was doing while I was taking care of them. I took this action as self-defense as well. Mona may exploit the fact that I had planned to leave the country to her advantage and control my girls. The older one admitted that she occasionally thought Mona and my mother were undoubtedly up to something, but she was also devastated to learn the reality. She also mentioned that she thought my mom might be seeing a 2-block-away widower. That's not my problem anyhow. My dad was dead for decades, so she was free to do as she pleased. But through it all, she was lending Mona support. It was a problem for me because I packed up and returned the following day. Since then, Mom and Mona have been phoning me. I believe the realization hit them when they returned home to an empty house. Yes, I did desert them. For the first month, all of the calls and texts I received were from people begging and sulking for me to go back home. However, they ultimately began to worry about the cash. I didn't intentionally block them because I wanted to watch their anxiety grow in the absence of money. My credit card and bank accounts were frozen. That was the end of their marbles. Since neither of them had a source of money, it was clear. Mom received a state pension, but it was insufficient to support their way of life. They are frantically attempting to reach me, but I have abandoned them. Mom has resorted to emotional coercion, claiming that my leaving her alone in her old age would have devastated Dad. All of their requests are being ignored. I felt so deeply betrayed by them. I had no suspicions about Mona. Unlike many in long-distance relationships, I never check at her phone. I did, however, always respect her privacy. I felt like Mom had betrayed me more than Mona. Occasionally, when I felt uneasy about Mona, witnessing her close relationship with her mother helped to ease my feelings. I get betrayed in return. It was such a pathetic excuse for them to hide Mona's adultery. She opened her legs like though she was lonely. With her kids in her own home and friends and relatives all around, she felt isolated. If you put it that way, I was actually more alone than you were, literally alone in a strange country with no family or friends. The difference is that I chose not to bring someone inside my bed, even if I could have. I was so preoccupied with worrying for my family's welfare that I had no time to play about. I was putting in a lot of work and saving money so I could return home as soon as possible. They contacted my daughters for assistance after I failed to respond to any of their advances. Mona performed precisely as I had anticipated, even though she was unaware that I had given the girls the truth. Mona spoke poorly of me in front of them, claiming that I had severed our financial ties. She further claimed that I may have married someone here, or that I was having an affair in the Gulf. My girls gave her back after hearing all of her BS and informed her that they were aware of her affair. That day, they drove her away, but Mona has been contacting the younger one to plead for assistance ever since. The younger one is more intimate with Mona, and she is taking advantage of her naivety to coerce money from her. In any case, I won't be asking her to quit supporting her mother. She's mature enough to know what to do. Mom has also been contacting my daughter to ask for financial assistance. For my part, I still find it difficult to get over the sense of betrayal. Likewise, I haven't given divorce any thought yet. It will unduly dent my pocketbook. Mona would benefit financially and personally from a divorce if she wanted to wed her affair partner. I won't go into that, though. The most she can expect from me is that she already resides in my home. I have no accountability while I'm abroad. Therefore, it doesn't really matter to me whether you're divorced or not. I'm attempting to move on from my past. If something changes, we'll keep you informed. OP, take your time. It's a serious setback. It's appropriate for you to freeze the accounts. They take advantage of you while you're working nonstop to support them. You don't need to give them any more money. You make a really good point, too. In Dubai, you felt considerably more alone than she did, and you are just as lonely as she was. She did, at least, have family and friends nearby. You may have easily cheated as well. Update 3. The following is what transpired. They attempted every avenue available to them when I turned off their financial support. My younger daughter was tricked into helping them, but my elder daughter refused to assist them. However, she didn't make much money. Her first job pays very little and just provides for her necessities. Still, she's putting some of it aside to support her mother. In fact, I was pleased with her. She eventually became weary of assisting Mona. She advised Mona to seek a job so that she could support herself, but Mona dismissed her advice, claiming that it was her duty to look after her mother when she was sick. With her meager salary, my younger daughter did all she could, but she cut her off when it got to be too much. Mona has been contacting me for a divorce because she is still married to me and cannot marry an affair partner. She's been threatening me with lawsuits and everything, but guess what? It doesn't concern me. I'm not in the nation. She doesn't seem to have the knowledge or resources necessary to bring a cross-border lawsuit against me. And even if she did, this country's laws do not penalize you for leaving your cheating wife behind. Well, good luck with her court filling. As of right now, Mona works in the shop of her affair partner, but I'm not sure what she gets paid for her services, cash, or something else entirely. In addition to living in a camper and having to take care of his sick father, the affair partner is not well off. Therefore, he lacks the financial means to support Princess Mona. Now, when I think about my mother, I occasionally feel awful for making fun of her and want to support her. However, she receives a pension which ought to be enough to support her. That was something she caused for herself. She has apologized for what she did, so I might make up with her later, but not right now. She didn't seem to be truly regretful for what she had done. I'll just have to wait for the day when she truly owns up to her faults, my rage fades, and my love for her wins out. A few of you suggested that I move on and take advantage of Dubai's exciting lifestyle. Funny, though. It's not quite as perfect as it appears on social media. Not everyone can live the captivating lifestyle of the royals, as portrayed on social media. It requires a great deal of money. So for now, I'll ignore that. Here, laws pertaining to women are likewise rather severe. Furthermore, I have no interest in utilizing the bodies of women to cope with my loss. Yes, however, I have done a lot of traveling since then. So far, I've visited Bali and China. I have a big list of other Asian nations and civilizations that I hope to investigate. After that, we'll start a new thread where I can talk about my trip. I appreciate all of your kindness and help. To be honest, your mother truly let you down. She treated herself in the same way that Mona did, so you shouldn't feel horrible about it. It's unlikely that your love for her will ever be the same. Furthermore, your love doesn't have to control your feelings. Love evolves. Therefore, even if you love the woman you believe to be familiar, it might not be the same in the future. Right now, it's all about feeling the feels and going with the flow. Your two lovely children adore and help you. How do you interpret this? How would you have responded in that situation? How do you feel about the OP's ex claiming loneliness as an excuse?